In my previous career, before we launched Lucie Content, I was an anchor reporter at WSB. WSB stands for Welcome South Brother. And in 2011, when I did one of my first reports over here on the west side of Atlanta, it was anything but welcoming. I looked around and thought to myself, no one should be living like this. Well, that was then, and this is now. And in this series, we are spotlighting the amazing work of the Westside Future Fund with their CEO. Lucie, the name means light. The majority of our team has worked in newsrooms throughout the country. We've seen the negatives. At Lucie, we explore the positives. And through this video series, we spotlight them. People, places, businesses, nonprofits, you name it. Storytelling is at the heart of our company, and we know sharing a story makes connections. It's simple, informative, and empowering. So without further ado, let's go. We're here with John Ahmann. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
This is great. You and I go way back. We're here at 395 James P. Brawley, which we've seen incredible transformation.
Right.
Tell us about what you guys have done with this particular development.
Yeah, this is a real anchored development for us. If you and I had been standing here back in 2016, I don't think either one of us would have felt particularly safe. It was an abandoned multifamily. It actually had tunnels through it, so illegal activity could occur without people being seen from the street. So when we acquired it, back in 2018, we wanted to redevelop it really for the community. And it was a real big test for us because there was a lot of suspicion when we first started. What is the Westside Future Fund really about? Is it really about the community, or is it just, showing up to do a big kind of gentrification play? So when we developed this, one thing that's really special about it, we could have torn it down. Right? It was in horrible shape when we purchased it. A for-profit developer very likely would have demolished, because saving it, and part of what we heard from the community was, we want to preserve the historic character of these neighborhoods. So doing the renovation work was important to preserve the look. So you can see we preserved the original buildings. To build community, we put porches on them, and this was a parking lot, right? And again, back to building community, you can see what it is now. The parking now is behind. And we, when we acquired it, we had an announcement with, she just got an elected mayor, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and then she actually then came to the ribbon cutting. And what was very special when we redeveloped this is we prioritized people from the community to go into these units. And most of the folks who are here are paying a rate they can afford, but then we subsidize the rest.
You guys were not well received initially because people, their red flag was up.
Yeah.
And so how did you kind of change that perception?
Yeah, well, what was really important to building that trust was to deliver on the things that we had heard from the community. And so when we first started, a lot of properties, I know we're going to talk more about James P. Brawley, but on James P. Brawley, we're blighted and abandoned. There are some homeowners living here, and some still do, but there's also, along with that, unfortunately, a lot of illegal drug activity was occurring. This area was especially notable for drug trafficking. What I've learned, the way you build trust is to really show people what you do. And so this is a great example because it reflected what we heard from the community. We preserved the units as opposed to doing a demolition. You can see it's a low density. We did high quality. And we prioritize people from the community to go into these units, ensuring that people can pay a rent that they can afford. Imagine if this had gone a very different way, how it would feel to the community if we had demolished this, and if we had built something more akin to what you would see on Northside Drive with all the new rental going up. So something very modern looking. We could have done probably 4 stories here, right? Put a lot more density here. So imagine how that would have shown up to the community if we had done that. It would have confirmed their worst fears. You're not here for us, you're here for you.
Right.
And so the very experience of this, right, and people in the community can see it, and the people that are living here, that's how we build trust.
So what have some of these residents told you? I mean, they recognize you. What are some of the words that they share with you about the Westside Future Fund? It,
runs the gamut, but certainly probably, more, appreciation for the collaborative relationship we have with the community and working with folks.
It's, I enjoy coming out of my home now, and I'm looking at all these pretty houses. Everything is beautiful, and just the people are just as nice.
Now we're walking along James P. Brawley right here, and why was this area so important for the Westside Future Fund to focus on?
When we started our work back in 2016, when I first started the Westside Future Fund, we were doing and co-sponsored with the city a land use framework plan. And the community, as we prioritized in the neighborhoods, the community said, James P. Brawley, this is a real spine of English Avenue, and prioritizing this corridor is what the community said. And it's a key corridor. It goes all the way from Donnelly Howell, and if we just kept on going south, you'd wind up in the Atlanta University Center campus. So it's the real spine of the neighborhood, and we couldn't, when we started our work, English Avenue, it was probably 3/4 depopulated, meaning most of the land was vacant, much of it blighted. Most of James P. Brawley looked like what you see across the street.
And that's a private owner?
That's a private owner, and they now have plans to redevelop it. But we couldn't do everything at once, right? And so the community said prioritize James P. Brawley. Over time, we were able to buy up about 40% of the properties on this part of James P. Brawley Drive. 395 we just toured was our first one. And now we're very much about activating, all the assets we own on James P. Brawley. What we want to do, right, is encourage others who own to do something. And so now that there's more activity, that's exactly what we're seeing happen. And we'll, have some other examples of it. But what was really important when we started was ensuring people, as the revitalization took hold, that people from the community could participate and wouldn't be pushed out.
Back in my reporter days at WSB, I remember coming over here and doing a lot of stories about, you just mentioned that vacant home, and there were some groups that owned 150 plus homes. At the time, Mayor Kasim Reed was very involved in trying to clean this up. Nothing was really changing. So what has happened since then?
Well, it's gotten much better. We actually have purchased up over 40 acres of blighted, undeveloped land in English Avenue, Vine City. One of the challenges in eating back the city is people had private property rights. You're just not allowed to go take their property, even if you don't like their behavior, like the way they're doing things. So when we wanted to go about our work, what we had to do was, and we were very fortunate that 10 Atlanta corporations created an investment fund that then loaned money to the Westside Future Fund at very cheap rates. That allowed us to go acquire a lot of land so we could go buy from Rick Warren at a price he was willing to sell. So part of it was, as much as you may want them to do different, much as you may want them to give you what they own, they're not, they're private property owners. And so we bought up a lot of land from outside investors, and then this is what we, turn around and do with it. So this is a renovation. You can see this one's for sale for $325,000. When we develop a home, we price it at our land cost and our development cost. What did it cost to buy the land? What did it cost to renovate the home? And that's what we listed at. We prioritize people that have a live, work, learn connection to the community. And once someone qualifies for a mortgage, we offer up to $60,000 of down payment assistance for someone to go into this home. So what will probably happen is the buyer of this home will probably have a mortgage of around $240,000, $250,000, because our down payment assistance will help. And that down payment assistance is earned, which is really important, because they have to be in the home for a full 10 years to realize the full benefit of that. If they move out the first 5, they got to pay us back, because we don't want to encourage flipping, and then it burns down after that. But what's also really important with the community retention guidelines is people that have a connection to these neighborhoods, whether they grew up in the neighborhoods, or they worked in the neighborhoods, or graduate from the local schools, as we come rebuild the community, they got those historical ties that they bring with them, and a lot of, love for the neighborhood. I live in Vine City, and you look around, there's a lot of activity, but there's still a lot of challenges. And so for people coming in now, they're really building that community, as opposed to, probably 5, 7 years from now, when the neighborhood will probably be in a much different position in terms of a lot more people being in the neighborhood and a lot more amenities existing in the neighborhood.
This is a great area too, because you have this home and that other blue home.
Historic Westside Gardens in between.
Yeah, the gardens are great. Let's check it out.
What I love about seeing this, you can see, they're growing right here, and it's, to me, signifies, life-giving, nourishing. Unfortunately, if we were to take a right down Jet and go about a half mile, you'd see flowers, but unfortunately marking where someone was shot and killed. Right, and so, to me, part of the journey of these neighborhoods, in a way, it's that metaphor of resurrection, of things being, reborn in ways that are healthy and sustainable, as opposed to, taking life. Because unfortunately, the violence in these neighborhoods, which is much less, but still too much, a lot of lives have been lost.
Look down this way, you can see Coca-Cola headquarters.
That's right.
Downtown Atlanta, in that area. This particular store, the Year-Old Grocery Store, we were just talking, shut down in
very historic
2019. And what's going on with it now?
We're waiting on we've applied for a permit to begin renovation activity. So Craig, a year from now when you come back, we'll be able to go back to outdoor seating and have a cup of coffee.
Nice.
So we will be beginning work in the next probably 30 to 45 days. This is a really important intersection. Back when this neighborhood was a vibrant, populated neighborhood, this was had a grocery store and a restaurant, and upstairs were multifamily, 4 units of multifamily. So this was built back in 1910. It was owned by the Cottrell family. When the family had exited, they were leasing to somebody who unfortunately wasn't policing what was going on in front of the store. So part of the reason we again bought it was not only bring it back to life, but to shut down the drug dealing that was literally, if we'd been here in 2018, they would have been standing right there. And when we bought the store, I'll never forget, we were putting out a press conference, and Michael Bond, who's on the city council and grew up in the neighborhoods, his father, a very, very famous civil rights leader. But I called him for, by being in the press release, and he said, "Well, you're going to tear that down, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Why would we do that?" He said, "Well, I know some people that have been killed associated with violence from that store." And so for him, it was a traumatic memory. And I'm like, "Well, could you imagine it reopened in a different way? It looks different, serves the community a different way." And he said, "Yeah, okay, I can." And maybe when we open it, we can have a prayer ritual to remember all those that lost their life in violence associated with activity. But on the other hand, right, people can remember when it, was back
what
to
it used to be.
It used to be.
How is this all possible?
We have a lot of great donors from a lot of businesses and business leaders of this city. So certainly the Arthur Blank Family Foundation, Mr. Arthur Blank's foundation. Another company, obviously he co-founded, is a big supporter of our work. The Home Depot and the Home Depot Foundation. Another great, our top corporate sponsors, Chick-fil-A, and the family has been very active, as along with all the folks, many others that work with Chick-fil-A, Dan Cathy in particular. And a lot of Atlanta's leading corporations are supporters of this effort. You mentioned Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, the Home Depot, Truist. The lead contractor for the stadium, Holder Construction, has been deeply involved in the work. The Georgia Power Southern Company, Equifax, ICE, Cox Enterprise. A lot of Atlanta's leading corporations who really appreciate the importance of these neighborhoods to having a great city have been big supporters. Atlanta's independent foundations have notable ones like the Woodger Foundation, the Campbell Foundation, the Toll Foundation, and then we have a lot of individual supporters as well. And our board of directors fully is a volunteer board of directors. Some of our best individual donors also serve on our board of directors. We have a Westside Volunteer Corps, so you can go to our website, sign up for our Westside Volunteer Corps. Every Saturday, once a month, we sponsor some kind of volunteer activity in the neighborhood, so that's another way to get involved. And yes, we have events people can participate in as well. So we have coming up in September our Ride for the West Side. So another way people can get involved. And certainly we would love for people that have philanthropic resources that they want to contribute. And we take all levels of donation, appreciating that people are at all different stages of life.
There you guys have it. You can definitely help out the Westside Future Fund. John, thank you so much for being on the Lucie Spotlight.
And thank you.
Congrats to all the work. Thank you for what you're doing for our city.
No, thank you. And I want to just express my gratitude. You've done an amazing job storytelling, lifting up the Westside Future Fund. We were, particularly, blessed because we initially met where you're going to help us. We had, at that point in time, had done enough work to begin the storytelling. And you were such a support. But then COVID happened.
Yeah,
and
we had to go virtual.
And we were gifted because you actually got us live and coached us, and we were like a leading everyone's like, what are y'all doing? And it was thanks to you because you advised us on how to go live and how to do it.
We have a great team.
But it was a great model at the time, so thank you, because we stayed engaged thanks to you, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is amazing. Appreciate it. Our mission is simple: create your news. When we create it, we hope to spotlight your purpose. Life's too short to be stuck in a world that becomes stale. What's your purpose? Are you living it? If not, the time is now. Thanks for listening and watching Carpe Diem.